So we're going to talk about presentations. Um, I believe in Intro to CLS, we talked about educational concepts a little bit, and this is kind of adding to this, or to that. Let me... So we're going to have an assignment that relates to this. Um, and for the assignment, basically, you're going to make a presentation. It's going to be a short presentation. Well, let me share that first. Okay. So you're making a presentation that you would present to at maybe like a high school job fair to tell a high school audience what we do. Like with all your classes that you've had so far, you should have a pretty good understanding on what it's going to be like being at MLS. So the point is, something that's really a problem with MLS is nobody knows who we are. Um, and not a lot of people know about this career going into college. So this is the goal of this is getting into high schools, letting people know like you don't have to just be a doctor or a nurse if you want to go in healthcare. There's other options. And what do we do? What's cool about what we do? How do we help patients? Um, Whatever you want to put on the slides to make it fun and interesting for high school students, but you must answer these questions in the PowerPoint. And you want to make it for 10 slides or less, so you want to keep it pretty condensed. Because just imagine you're at a high school job fair, people are walking by, you have maybe 5 to 10 minutes to keep their attention. So you want to get all this information out to them as quick as possible, but as entertaining as possible too. So that's the first part. The second part is you're going to prepare a lab demonstration. So for the educational presentation, you're going to present during class time. We're not actually going to go to a high school job fair, although that would be really cool to do one day. But you're going to present to the class like we're high school students. And then for the lab demonstration, you're gonna prepare an SOP as if you're going to do this with high school students. So basically, you want to pick an activity that we do in the lab, but make it safe to do with high school students. So we can't use blood, we can't use any, human specimens. It needs to be safe. So it should be a creative project. Like, since you can't use real things, like you could use Play-Doh, you could use food type things to demonstrate some skill that we do in the lab. And you cannot do ABO typing because everyone chooses that, so that's off limits.
Okay.
So basically, you're going to write a short SOP, like how to do this, and then a results worksheet for how they would record whatever you're showing them. And like the SOP is going to have your materials list for what you need to do this. You're not going to do it. This is just hypothetical.
Okay.
And then hopefully, maybe one day, once we have these things, maybe one day we could do something like this. I know that Santa Fe does like a summer program for high school students. So this is something that we could actually do. So that would be cool. Um, Especially like, just keep in mind, like, one day you're going to be in a lab that's short staffed. So you want to start doing the work now. Like, get young people interested so that we have a steady flow of people coming to work with us. Because being short-staffed it can be very, very hard. It's hard to get out of that hole. Morale gets low, and then it just gets insane when you get to the point where you're really, really short-staffed. So you want to keep it at that level where you're good and you don't have to worry about that. And then you're just going to do like a short reflection, like really short about this project.
Okay.
And then your rubric is down here. And I made a due date July 28th, and we will, I'll have to see what day we'll actually do the presentations in class, because the 28th is a Monday. But
I want to say that no, that would be Saturday on the 25th. I think you said it's in there. You posted something about like July 25th or 24th, something like that we would present in class. But the assignment was due the 20th. It might have been under announcements.
okay. So yeah. I mean, this class is going by very quickly. We only have a month left pretty much. So, yeah. But now let me switch over.
Um, Really quick, an example to do for the like test sample
Mhm.
or whatever. Can we do like a urine streak on a plate? Like how to do a urine streak, but instead of using actual urine, I could use like glitter glue or something.
Yes, that is something that I
Beautiful.
have seen done at things like this. Like, think making like micro plates out of like Jello and then streaking it with ketchup or some kind of food product or glitter, um, is something that I've seen before. And keep in mind, like, as you want to make it as involved as possible because they're going to be more into it if they can actually do it. You don't just want to be like, here's a demonstration. Like, if they can actually like dip something and then streak it themselves, it's going to be cooler for them.
Okay.
But yeah, be as creative. I mean, it's going to be easier. I mean, obviously, like chemistry is very automated. Um, so I mean, you could get real creative and actually like go into one of the chemical things that like a chemistry instrument does. But you'd have to kind of deep dive to like research one of those things and then
Mhm.
be able to convert that over to something that you don't actually need like the real chemicals to have. Um, But even like for hematology, you could do like Play-Doh and drawing different cells or like making different cells with Play-Doh. Um, or, using like craft supplies to build things or whatever. Whatever your
Okay.
creative self wants to do. But
Okay.
um yeah, I'm very interested to see what people will come up with.
I already got one
Um,
cooking. I just got to figure out how I'm gonna do it.
Good. And there's lots of things on the internet too. If you search, like some colleges actually have things available. Like obviously don't completely steal something, but you can look to get some ideas on what other people are doing.
If we get an idea, do you need references? Like where
Um,
you got the idea from, but I've changed it up a little bit.
I guess that would be nice.
Okay.
So for presentations, and there's not like a hard rules for presentations, but these are just really suggestions for making PowerPoints more easy to view. Um, so text only slides, in general, you really don't want to do that. You want to keep the slides as simple as possible so that you are talking about the things on the slide. Like this isn't supposed to be notes for the presentation. This is just highlights so that they can look at it. They know, okay, you're going to talk about this now, and then you talk about it. You don't write all the information on the slide. How much information do you want on each slide? You want to use key phrases and essential information. Keep it legible and readable font. So don't make it too small. Don't try to squeeze it so small that you can't see it. Bullets are good. There's a 6x6 rule, so no more than 6 lines per screen and no more than 6 to 10 words per line. Because you want to be speaking the main points, not, you don't want your audience to be trying to read the slide as you're talking about it. Background, graphics, contrast. You want to make sure it's easy to read. So in general, people like to keep the same background for all slides so that everything flows together. You want contrasting type and backgrounds. So if you have a dark background and light text, you can read it. If you have a light background, you want dark text. The thing about dark backgrounds is if you expect people to read it, or to print it, you don't really want to use dark backgrounds because it's going to use way too much ink. But when you're choosing dark backgrounds for any reason, you want to make sure that you make sure it's readable. So sometimes you need to make the text bold to make it more obvious. You don't want to use too much color. Like you can use color to highlight, like if there's an important vocabulary word, you can highlight those words to focus your attention. But if you just, everything is like a rainbow of color, it might be a little distracting.
Okay.
Color combination 1. Blue and yellow, they contrast. I personally think yellow on a light background is kind of hard to read, so I would not recommend this, but apparently it's okay. Less effective, green and white. They don't really contrast that much, and white is very hard to see if you have a light background. So you really don't want to use white unless you have a dark background. Especially if you're going to be printing, this is going to be extremely hard to read. You want to avoid red on blue. It causes this issue, which is, it makes you feel like you have binocular vision, which was interesting. And then red and green. Apparently, a lot of people are red-green colorblind. It's a higher percentage in males. And you will see when you get you get a hospital job or MLS job, you'll probably have to take a colorblind exam because some assays you actually have to be able to see a color change to be able to read that assay. So usually when you're going through the HR process, they'll pull out their little color book and say, you know, what does this picture look like? And if you can't see the number or letter, then you might have some color blindness. Usually that's not going to prohibit you from the job, but sometimes it could be like you can't do this particular assay because you have to notice the color change. But we realized that because we were not doing the color test, and then we had to go and give it to all of our employees, and we realized that one of our supervisors actually had the red-green color blindness because he was like, I cannot see that at all. So that was interesting. Using textured backgrounds. sometimes it makes it really hard to see. Um, like this makes the type difficult. It's more difficult to read than if it was a solid background. Um, I mean, you don't want to have super boring slides, but you can add images or pieces of texture, like on the sides or a border, to make it less boring. But you don't want it to be distracting. Okay, legibility. Big is good, basically. Depending on where you're going to do this presentation, sometimes you don't know where you're going to be. You don't know what if you're going to have a small TV that you're presenting on or a huge board or how big the room is. So you want to kind of be prepared for, you want to make sure that the people in the back can read what's on the screen. So just keep that in mind. Just because you can read it on a computer doesn't mean when you're presenting it, people standing away can read it. So make sure you don't make the font too small. And there's not any like set points because depending on what font you choose, the size can be a little bit different. So
Okay.
as you can see here, like all 32 point aren't really the same size. And also some font is really hard to read. So sans serif is good. There's other ones. Serif is not great. It kind of starts merging into the other letters, so then it's hard to read. These artsy and shadow fonts are hard to read. They can still be used for maybe like headlines or something like that, but you don't want like the full text message to be in this if it makes it hard to read. And then save the boldface, underline, all caps to highlight words. Like if you want to emphasize one word or one statement, you can use these, but don't have your whole slide in underline. It's just gonna look weird. Okay. So normally you want to just capitalize the first word. Um, there are rules like in headers, you want to capitalize each word, but throughout your slide, you don't want to do that. You want to just use the normal first word as capitalized. And then everything is capitalized. It's not great to read. So that's kind of frowned upon. So again, you can use these things for emphasis, but don't make it your entire slide. Obviously, before you present, you want to check your spelling, check your grammar, make sure that it is legible. And if you are presenting any math, make sure your math is actually correct. I learned about this way after I started making PowerPoints. There's actually a thing called the Slide Master. If you go up to View in PowerPoint and then go to the Slide Master, you basically set up the format that you want to use so that all your slides are consistently using the same header, footer, font, bullet style. It makes everything come together and match so that each slide isn't completely different from each other. So it's kind of nice. I've never used this before, but it seems like it would be nice if you're trying to make a professional slide that looks uniform. And then after you set everything the way you want it to, you just close the master view and then it's going to update all your slides to match each other. Animations. So PowerPoint has some animations that you can throw in. Obviously, you don't want to make everything so busy that it's distracting from what you're talking about, but you can use these to direct attention to certain points that you want to make. or to get attention. Um, because you're always going to have people that are going to lose attention. Like if you're giving a presentation, it's hard to sit there and listen sometimes, even if you are interested. So sometimes having a surprising graphic can kind of wake people up and get them to start listening again. Slide transitions, that is available on PowerPoint. I personally, I think they're goofy looking and distracting. I really hate slide transitions, but I suppose there could be situations where they could be helpful or help do something. So there is that option in PowerPoint. When you're printing handouts, so it depends on what kind of presentation you're making. If you're making an educational presentation and you're expecting people to print it, this is how you print it. So delivering your presentation, especially for this, you want to keep it simple. Like you want to know your audience is high school students. Like, yes, they have a basic science knowledge, but obviously you know a lot more about this than they do. So try to put it in terms that they can understand. Like, don't use such high level vocabulary that they're going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Um, the TTT, so you want to start, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. So provide them a summary. And then once you have it all set up, you want to practice to make sure you know what you're talking about. You want to make sure, but really before you make your presentation, you want to make sure you know your audience. It completely, if you're presenting to high school students or if you're presenting at a professional conference, your audience is completely different. So you're going to adapt your presentation to how much knowledge your audience has on that subject. Like, are you trying to do an introduction lecture to people that have no knowledge about this? Or are you doing an advanced lecture for the experts in this topic? So you always want to know who your audience is before you start preparing a presentation. And one reason you want to practice is you want to stay within your allotted time. If you get asked to speak at a presentation and your presentation is supposed to be 25 minutes long and you're going on for 50 minutes, you are messing up the entire conference plan. And a lot goes into planning conferences. Like basically all the professional conferences, like there's a planning committee, which I just learned this because I just got on a conference committee last year. And it's so much work. Like you're basically planning all the details for a conference for a year to make it good. You're planning all the speakers, you're planning the topics, really trying to get the topics and speakers to like build on each other or be complementary. And then you have one person that goes way over and it pushes everything off schedule. So, and depends on what the conference is. Sometimes they will just cut you off and say, sorry, you can't finish. But sometimes they'll just let you go on and then basically you're going to be there all night because everything's delayed now. So make sure, like, if someone asks you to do a presentation, make sure you know, like, is this going to be 20 minutes? Is this going to be 50 minutes? And then you want to practice that you get it within that certain time. Obviously, if you're booked for 50 minutes, you don't want to finish in 10 minutes because then you're just going to be like, questions. So yeah. And like for me, I know I don't take 50 minutes to say things, especially like when I present at conferences, I'm really nervous. So I talk really, really fast. So when people have asked me to do like 50-minute things, I'm like, no, but I'll do a 25-minute lecture. Like I'm not doing 50 minutes. Um, I can't maintain that level of stress for that long. Uh, but some people love speaking, so they're like very casual and they're just really good at it, but that's not my gift. Um, you want to make
Same.
sure, yeah. And apparently you can learn, um, but I don't feel like I've learned that
Which is a
skill.
choice. It is a
Right.
choice to learn that.
Yeah. Um, so you want to try to make eye contact, like don't just look down at the podium and read your slides word for word. It's really boring if you're just reading what's on the slide. You want to try to engage audiences. And I mean, that's a whole nother topic, like a public speaking, like how to engage people, like ask questions, give them examples that they will be interested in hearing. But so that's not really what this presentation is about. That's a whole nother thing. But you want to try to engage with your audience so that they don't fall asleep. You want to speak clearly, be sincere, watch your body language. You will see a mix of body language. Like some people will just like pace, like walk back and forth, and they'll be talking so that you can't hear them because they're just walking back and forth. Um, and then probably the opposite, like I feel like I don't move enough when I'm speaking because I'm just like terrified. So you want to be like relaxed as much as you can be and just be sincere, like talk. These are people. Um, Even if you mess up, it's okay. Everyone messes up. Um, and then getting into the summary, you want to stay calm. You want to talk slowly. Um, Depending on what your audience is, you want to provide rules. Like, do you want people to hold all the questions until the end, or do you want people to hold up their hands if they want to ask a question? Do you need to state, like, please turn your cell phone off, or what? Um,
And this is done like right before you start the presentation.
Usually, or at a conference, usually they'll begin the conference, like, remind everyone, please turn your cell phones off before you start. Now, though, a lot more, like at conferences, we're incorporating things that are on cell phones, like taking
Mm.
polls or doing like Kahoot quizzes. So usually they'll let you know ahead of time, like, we're going to take some polls, so log into this website before we get started, because at multiple points we're going to be asking you questions for feedback. Um, so yeah, normally you get everyone prepared at the beginning, so then you're not scrambling to open your cell phone and find the website or the app in the middle of your lecture.
Okay.
Um, don't make a long, involved title which tells the whole slide contents. You want to leave the meat for the slide. The title isn't even the appetizer, it's the menu. So it's just, this is what we're going to talk about, and then you're going to talk about it. So very short, like one word, 2 word summary. You're not going to say everything in the title. So keep the title concise. You want to use large font for the title. You always want to have the title is going to be larger than the rest of the slide. Um, and you want the content to be large enough to read. So like I said, if you don't know, and sometimes you don't know, like what kind of conference room you're going to be presenting in. Like sometimes you could be in like a huge conference room. Sometimes you'll be in a very like small like conference room, more like, smaller. I don't know. When you go to conferences, there's always like the big rooms and then there's the smaller rooms. So sometimes you don't know what room you're going to be in. So you want to just make sure that everyone in the back is going to be able to read. what you're writing on the screen. So you want to limit the words. You want to be speaking most of the topics. Be concise, not conversational. Although some on the slide you don't want to be conversational. When you're speaking, you do want to be conversational. So yeah, but don't write out a whole paragraph on the slide. Like save that for when you're actually talking. Sometimes, depending on what you're speaking about, you will like ask the audience to give you feedback. So you could, say, I mean, sometimes you'll just throw out a question, has anyone done this? And then everyone will say yes or no, or they'll hold up their hands. That's a good way to get people's attention, to expect them to like, yes, I'm paying attention. And then using visuals. Visuals are always nice, especially when you're talking about science things, because you can
Mhm.
say a whole lot of words, but unless you like see an example, you're just like, okay, like I'm trying to visualize it, but yeah, if you gave me a picture of it, it would really help. Don't read your slides word for word. Everyone will fall asleep if you do this. And if you're a good speaker, you will watch your audience and kind of play off of them to decide, like, do I need to do something to get them more involved? Am I losing them? Do I need to do a poll right now to make sure people are not asleep? Um, don't make so many bullets and sub bullets that there's so much on a slide that, depending on how you make your slides, there's some that when you're typing, the text just gets smaller and smaller to be able to fit everything on the screen. So make sure you're not making it so much that it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. Like if there's that much to talk about, break it up between two slides. So titles, if you're doing, like, you can always put art in the title to kind of balance, or you can center the title. But if you think that a little picture is going to make it more exciting, you can add that. And then the summary, that's what we talked about. Presentations, slide layout, backgrounds, fonts, animations, printing, presenting. Yeah. So anyway, you're going to make a short PowerPoint for a high school. That is your audience. So you want to keep in mind what their knowledge is, what's the goal to get them interested, and tell them about this. In case they don't know, they probably don't know. So you kind of want to work off of, they probably have no idea this field exists. Like I need to start absolutely from scratch. Um, don't, I mean, it's high school, it's not elementary school. If we were presenting
Mhm.
to elementary school, this would be a completely different presentation. So
Mhm.
they know some science. They probably don't know anything about this specifically, though. Um, and the goal is to get them interested. So, what's the cool thing about this career? What kind of cool things do we do? Whatever you think would make high school students interested in learning more about this.
Okay. And then as far as my audience goes, I know that it's high school students, but is it 9 through K or am I just junior, seniors?
I am thinking it's older, like junior, senior,
Okay.
like preparing to really think about what they're majoring in, making decisions. Like they know what
Okay.
they're interested in, they're starting to make decisions on what they're going to do.
Okay. Okay. That helps a little bit because
And
I think,
I mean, make it fun. And this is just this is really more for professional things. For this, since it's high school, I think some of these rules can be broken. You want to make it
Mhm.
real jazzy or super colorful. We want to gain their attention. So attention is something that we need to keep. So if you want to make it colorful, this is less about um, a professional presentation and more about keeping their attention for long enough to learn about what you're saying.
Okay. Can I, as far as language goes, can I use um oh my God, what's the word? Like lingo that they would normally use at that age, like lock in or, does that
Yeah,
make sense?
I think
Okay,
so.
okay. Because I feel like that'll engage them. They'll be like, oh, lock in, I know what that means.
Yes. Yes, I think that's good. Um, yeah. Yeah, anything to engage them.
Okay. And then the presentation is separate from the experiment that I'm doing with them.
You'll turn both in together to this present or to this assignment.
Hmm.
Um, we're not going to actually do the SOP. You want to imagine it and make it as if we're going to do it. But
Okay.
yeah, we won't be doing it.
Okay.
Maybe next year or some year we can coordinate that with the STEM camp, but I was not prepared this year.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mhm.
Working on your book report?
Yes. I
Good.
picked Radical Candor, and
Cool.
I'm just like reading a chapter, taking notes, reading a chapter, taking notes. That way, because I forget stuff, especially after I'm reading it really
Hmm.
easily if I don't like repeat it. So that's why I'm like, gotta take notes throughout this because if I'm gonna type up I haven't looked at what you're actually looking for in the report yet because I wanted to read the book first.
Hmm.
But hopefully with the notes, I can just kind
Yeah.
of.
I would I would read through the assignment just to make sure you're thinking about those topics as you read it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I love that book. It's great.
Yeah. It was an easy read so far. I'm only in chapter two, but so far I'm just like, oh, this isn't bad. And it actually kind of makes sense. I kind of want to give it to my managers at work, but I know they won't read it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that way about like all these books. I'm like, oh, I'm reading this. Have you read it yet? Hint, hint. But sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't.
hmm, I guess we'll see. If not, maybe I don't know, give them a little note card with a suggestion.
Yeah. Any other questions about any other assignments or anything?
Um, as far as this class, I think, but if something pops up, I'll email you.
Okay.
But I don't think I have any other. Let's see. Yeah, we just had the mental health first, and then the final book report and the education assignment.
Yes. I will be adding a couple more assignments soon. Um, like preparing a CV, a resume, a cover letter, um, basically getting ready to apply for jobs. Well, actually, never mind. I think I'm putting that in the clinical correlation class. So in this class, there is going to be a job interview question, but it's going to be the opposite. In the clinical correlation class, you're going to be the person being interviewed, and then in this
Hmm.
class, you're going to be the interviewer.
Yeah.
So both sides,
Okay.
but
Well, I feel like I'm gonna grill people.
yeah. But anyway, that's all I have.
Okay. I'll get working on this, and then I didn't find the announcement. I swear, maybe it was for a different class.
I'll add
used for
it to
clinical
this assignment.
correlations. But but I'll just shoot to have it done like this third week, so like July 19th. Have it done and submitted. That way, that'll give you like a week and a half to play with dates
Yeah,
as far as like when you want us to present it and stuff.
that sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Well, have a
have a
good day.
wonderful week.
They will.
Bye.